live stream talking about Freemasonry. Let's give it a minute. Let's see who joins. And then let's start chatting. Please, as always, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, etc., etc. All the things that you say. Let's give it a few minutes. Let's see who joins. As usual, the first hour or so is going to be focused on, well, half an hour to an hour is just me kind of chatting, hanging out. Then we'll start talking about specific topics. Including today, I was thinking of Freemasonry and reducing violence in our communities, our cities, etc., etc. Why I think Freemasonry and civic engagement can be, can assist in reducing some violence that we see. That's not to say violence already isn't actually dropping according to most statistics in both Canada and the US, but I do think you also have to take crime statistics with a grain of salt for various reasons, which I can talk about. But I think we should always be looking at more ways to encourage a reduction in violence, encourage a reduction in crime, and I think civic engagement and civic groups is one such way to do so. All right, poll question in. Let's give it a minute and let's see who joins. As always, takes usually a few minutes for people to jump on. In the meantime, once you do jump on, please take a moment, hit like, hit subscribe. First bit though, let's just chat about Freemasonry. Any questions, any thoughts, any comments, positive, negative, or neutral? Jump in the chat and let me know. For now, though, I'm just going to wait to see who jumps in and says hello. Judah Santos says, bro. Welcome, Judah. Thank you for being here. I hope you hit the like and subscribe button. Let me know if you have any thoughts on Freemasonry. If you are a Freemason yourself, I've been a Freemason since 2007. I don't know everything about Freemasonry, but I like to think I know a lot, so. 4 letters, 1 word. I do not know what that is, but Blake Kelly says hello. Please hit the like and subscribe button, Blake. Pink, in honor of Bret the Hitman Hart, the greatest professional, my second favorite professional wrestler of all time. My first is John Cena. But pink, and I think pink is a manly color. It doesn't get near the love and respect it deserves, by the way. Thank you, Noah. I appreciate it, and welcome to the stream. First little bit, we're just going to chat about Freemasonry, any thoughts you have, anything you want to talk about. Then we'll switch over to talking about specific topics, including civic engagement, reduction of violence. Blake Kelly, acknowledge him. So Roman Reigns. Hey, Roman Reigns is incredible. Roman Reigns is one of the greatest of all time. There's no doubt. He's a GOAT. Hit like and subscribe, or give a heart. Give some of these hearts for Roman Reigns. He deserves it. Simple Man by Leonard Skinner is my favorite song. Second favorite, Prodigal by Blacktop Mojo. Jake Collins says, hello, Jake. I hope you're doing well. I hope you'll hit that like and subscribe button. I do these streams every Monday, 1 p.m., Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. and 1 a.m., and we talk about Freemasonry. Sometimes different subjects, sometimes we have specific subjects. Sometimes it's just a free-for-all, ask us anything. Because I love Freemasonry. It's my favorite thing in the world. I've been a Freemason since 2007. So it's almost been 20 years, which is crazy to think. I do wake up early. I agree it's too early. I don't disagree with that, but who do you think is going to win, Blake? Do you think it's going to be Cody or Cena's going to win? Blake loves God. Thank you, Blake. I appreciate that. I hope you'll hit that like and subscribe button. Uh, and let me know how you're doing. Thank you, Judah. I truly appreciate it. Thank you, Blake loves God. I appreciate that as well. Let me know if you guys have any thoughts, any questions, any comments on Freemasonry. That happens in Canada too, Gareth. That happens in Canada, but that is also one of those things where that is something that maybe reduces recidivism or takes place after the initial crime has occurred. I'm wondering if, although that's something worth considering as well, is how to reduce recidivism. My wondering is, can engagement in civic groups like Freemasonry reduce crime overall, including, taking people on a different path before they commit the first crime? I'm working on it, Blake, but I appreciate that. Just tell all your friends, like and subscribe as well. Follow me on Patreon, all that good stuff. I agree, Gareth. I think that they can. Certainly, if they're being done well. I think you could argue that could be one of the goals of schools should be to instill that sense of civic duty or civic pride. Mateo, welcome, Matty. Please like and subscribe. Let me know if you have any thoughts on Freemasonry. I agree. Well, that to me, I mean, if you just to be alive, you're part of a team. I truly believe that. You're part of team world, team, I don't even know what to call it. You're part of team humanity. And then, you have narrower teams as you go. I'm part of team humanity. Then I'm part of team Canada. Then I'm part of team Ontario. Then I'm part of team Windsor. Then I'm part of team downtown Windsor. But I should be acting in a way that I consider the effect on those teams when I take any actions. I don't think it will be, Blake. I don't know for sure, but I don't think it will be. I suspect he'll have some more matches. We're just going to give it a bit more time. We're going to see who else joins, jumps in the chat to say hello before we start. I mean, but I'm sure there will be. I haven't heard anything that he's retiring. I mean, he could be, don't get me wrong, but Chastity, for me, it's 1:07 p.m. I also do these streams 1 a.m., so... Welcome if you are just joining us. Please hit like and subscribe. Interesting to see. We have 10 votes on the question. Do you think that engagement in civic life can reduce violence? 80% yes, 20% no. I'm thinking about this because of the recent shooting in New York. Which got me thinking again about Freemasons' role in reducing violence by being a place of social safety, a social safety net in some ways. But for the first bit, it's just a chat, ask us anything kind of stream, so... Alexandru says hi. Hello. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for being here. Let me know if you have any thoughts or questions on Freemasonry. Positive, negative, or neutral. I'd love to hear them. And as always, to everybody watching, take a moment, hit that like and subscribe button. I'm doing well. How are you doing? What about me? I have no idea. We'll see. That's the fun part, is just see what happens, see what the story is, you know? Let's give it some more time. Let's see who else jumps in. That is cold coffee. But thank you for being here. By the way, I am considering doing another 24-hour live stream, probably sometime in August. I don't know for sure off the top of my head when it will be. But believe me, once I plan it, I will be letting everybody know about it. So you'll see me talking about it. Yeah, well, I did one before, and it was really, really fun. I enjoyed it a lot, so I'm considering doing it again. Raynash Nair, every push-up you do, I'll give you $1. Well, Raynash, I sometimes on my other channel, youtube.com/square and youtube.com/Cameron Adamson, I'll do videos of me working out, including doing push-ups, so that's always really fun. Maybe you guys can check me out there. And if you want to give me any money...
in all my years of policy...
Sorry about that. If you want to give me any money, you can do so through Patreon. Patreon.com/square and compass. Patreon.com/square and compass. I just had YouTube on there in the background for a second, and a video. I did not realize the video was still up, so that was secular talk, actually. Thanks. Well, let me just give you my Patreon once again, then. I appreciate that very much. Even more important than that, though, is just hitting the like, hitting the subscribe, and sharing the stream. That stuff helps out big time. But patreon.com/square and compass, or youtube.com/Cameron Adamson. But again, just the being here, the liking, the subscribing, that stuff helps out huge, huge, and it's truly appreciated. We're going to give it a bit of time. We're going to see who else joins before we start talking about the main subject. This looks like you, says Boss One. The emoji? That's a very handsome emoji, I guess. Please hit like and subscribe in honor of that red looking thing. I don't even know what that is. But it's a very handsome, emoji. Justin, Reform, UK. That's a political party, I think, right? Justin, welcome. Please hit like and subscribe. Just so you know, Justin, on these streams we talk about Freemasonry. The beautiful thing about Freemasonry is it welcomes men and women. There's Order of Women Freemasons, but men of all different political backgrounds and beliefs, conservatives, liberals, In Canada, NDP, Republican, Democrat, Reform as well, I'm sure. That's one of the beautiful things about it. Thank you, TER. In honor of that, please hit like and subscribe. Tear, I think. Please hit like and subscribe. I truly appreciate everybody being here. And thank you, everybody who's voted thus far. We're going to give it a bit more time, see who else joins. As always, the first hour or so, I tend to spend just hanging out, chatting with people, seeing who wants to join in. But we've got, the second part will be talking more about violence and where I think Freemasonry can go to, or why I think civic groups and civic organizations like Freemasonry are so valuable in possibly reducing violence that we see out there. By the way, so I said 24-hour live stream. Maybe we'll be doing that. I don't know for sure. But maybe the third week of August, something like that. Need to recover. Hello, I hope you're doing well. Thank you for being here. Muhammad Al-Sayed, I guess, is the name. Let's give it a bit of time. Let's see who else jumps in to say hello. No rush at all. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Usually it takes, half an hour to an hour for a lot of the people to start showing up. So we're going to give it a bit of time. Trump is your lord. Trump is not my lord. But welcome nonetheless. Thank you for being here. I hope you'll hit the like and subscribe button. Lucas Wickens. So I do these streams and I talk about Freemasonry every Monday through Friday, usually 1 p.m. and 1 a.m. I hope that you will hit the like button and the subscribe button, Lucas, to help me do this. And I hope that you will maybe even support me on Patreon. Patreon.com/squareandcompass. What in the 33rd MB, Stephen Holmes? Well, if you support my Patreon, patreon.com/squareandcompass, then I would be relying on Patreon support and not government checks. So there's that. I've read the Da Vinci Code. It's a really good book. Obviously, it takes some liberties with what Freemasonry is, or actually, that was more the lost symbol, but it's still a great book. 33rd degree is a degree within Scottish Rite. It's primarily an honorary degree. I've known many 33rd degree Masons. I'm not a 33rd degree Mason myself, but a lot of the 33rd degree stuff has been way overplayed on social media. The highest degree in Freemasonry really is the 3rd degree. That's the one that matters the most. Beyond that, it's honorary, it's illuminating in some ways, the additional degrees, but it doesn't make you more of a Mason than the Master Mason. That's kind of as high as you can go. Xi Jinping, please hit like and subscribe. MB, I also be at like and subscribe. And thank you everybody for being here. Let me know if you have any thoughts on Freemasonry, any questions. I will do my best to answer them before I start on the main topic. It is MB, but having said that, I mean, especially the first hour, I tend to just kind of chat with people in the stream. So anything you want to talk about, kind of, you can jump in, and I don't mind discussing it. I have my personal YouTube channel as well. YouTube.com/Cameron Adamson, where we talk about just things I enjoy. Lots of times I talk about scary movies because I love horror films. So, other things can come up in the stream. What is the most charitable thing you've done lately? Certainly Freemasonry encourages or supports being charitable. That's a good question. If more people ask that question every day, you might have a better world. What is the most charitable thing I've done lately? Reached out to a friend who I knew was struggling to give them some time to talk. When we think about charity, we often think about it in terms of money and donations, but I think one thing Freemasonry reminds us of is you can be charitable in many different ways, not just with money, but with your time and your forgiveness and your understanding and your energies. I'm not Christian myself. I believe in a supreme being, but I do not necessarily believe in the Christian faith, nor any faith, if that makes sense. Though I do think they all have value, and I certainly am not one of those people who thinks, the world would be better without religion. I'm not in that sense at all, but I do believe, I believe religion is good for society. It's just not something I'm presently a part of. Organized religion, like I said, though I do believe in a supreme being. And as always, please take a moment, hit those like and subscribe button. And yes, I agree, Lucas, it is always nice to reach out to people who are in need. Red rum? I'm not sure what's happening with you and Lucas. I hope you hit the like and subscribe button. And I don't think nobody has to hate anybody. How about that? No, Carl. No, you cannot. That's a hidden message on there. Lucas, we have a home bakery. Good. That's awesome, Lucas. That's good of your bakery to do. And again, that's an example of, again, when you think of charity, there's a lot of different ways to think about charity. I think sometimes we are far too quick to think of charity in terms of just giving money. And I don't want to downplay it. Sometimes giving money is the best thing you can do. In fact, often giving money is the best thing you can do. But because the charities can then, use it efficiently. Having said that, that's not the exclusive way to be charitable. And certainly when it comes to friends, family, acquaintances, sometimes being charitable with your time, being charitable with your understanding, with leftovers, whatever it might be, is always going to be even more helpful. And something to keep in mind. No, Ruthless, I'm not going to say it, but thank you. Smokey Declare, we're going to be doing our live stream together in August. Like I said, I'm just going to pick the date and send you that invite. Probably, who knows, probably mid-August, like I said. That's another way to be charitable, Lucas, and that's a great example as well, right? Stopping through a park, stopping while you're in a park and picking up trash. You could argue that's being charitable to your community, that's being charitable to the other people who use the park. Uh, so, all of that stuff. No, Ruthless, I'm not falling for that one either. Please hit the like and subscribe button. It'll be a blast. Well, I mean, people go in and out. They have different ways of being charitable, right? Like, as you get older, you learn kind of why it's important, I think. It seems to me that there's kind of an interesting kind of cycle where when you're young, you're super charitable. Then you get older and you start to focus more on yourself and kind of this idea of no one's going to do it for me, so I got to focus on me, put myself first. And then you get a little bit older again and you realize that maybe that's not actually as helpful as you think. I was very sad about that as well, Sheldon. Ozzy was, one of the greats. Do the hearts. I was never a huge fan of like him myself, but I respected what he did in music. It was incredible. So, you don't get to be that big without having a lot of talent. All right, Lucas, move along. But thank you for being here. I truly appreciated it. Feel free to share the stream, etc., etc. And to everybody else who's just joining, I will do my best with my endeavors. Milo the dog, I don't know what you're looking at. I assume it's this handsome face on the screen. All right, Ruthless. Let's just time you out for a few. The question, do you think civic engagement or community groups will help reduce crime? 20 votes. 15 votes yes, 5 votes no. Which is interesting to see. I figured that would be about right. In terms of the number of people, in terms of the percentages, I figured most would say yes. The people who said no, I'm curious what your thoughts are as to why you said no, what you think. If not civic engagement, what might help reduce crime? Certainly, you could argue things like tougher gun laws, or some would argue better deterrence, more jail time. There's a lot of different people who have different views of it. To me, I see it primarily through my Masonic lens of civic engagement as being the first and the most important thing, or community engagement. They talk about this in Bowling Alone, for example. RTX, welcome. Thank you for being here. Please take a moment, hit that like and subscribe button. I'm giving it another 30 minutes. Then I'm going to start talking about the specific topic for today, which is Freemasonry and a reduction in violence in our communities. By the way, a lot of people don't realize it, but you already have a reduction in violence in our communities. So there's a lot of people working very hard to see crime reducing, but there's always more that can be done and that we should try to do. And I think encouraging civic engagement is a big way to do that. I also think Freemasonry plays a role already in reducing crime from what it could potentially be, by acting as a safety net to catch those who are struggling, which I'll talk about, once we get to the actual content or the actual topic of today's live stream. welcome. If you're just joining us, please jump in the chat, say hello, hit the like and subscribe button. Godly unsung hero. Community and having a purpose goal is so huge in reducing crime. A lot of the times people are frustrated. I agree with that 100%. Godly unsung hero. Why are Freemasons free? That's a good question, Clorox Bleach. Actually, I'm going to treat that as a serious question. And Godly, thank you for being here. Please hit like and subscribe. And I'm going to talk more about why I absolutely agree with you shortly. The term Freemasonry comes from one of two possible origins. I've heard both. The more likely option is that Freemasonry referred to a type of stone or freestone, which was basically a type of limestone that was very hard to use or work with. Only the most specialized Masons could use it, and they became known specifically as Freemasons because they were the ones who could work with this special type of stone called freestone. The other is the idea of Freemasons being free to travel from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, place to place, to apply their skills. In the same way, master electricians or carpenters or anybody in those type of fields are known as journeymen, because they have the skills to journey from place to place to do their work. Freemason, the idea of being a traveler, being free to travel in order to engage in your Masonic work. And now that means I'm free as a Freemason or speculative Mason to travel from jurisdiction to jurisdiction to visit other lodges, which I will be doing very shortly. Once again, and I cannot wait. So I hope that answered your question. I hope you'll hit the like and subscribe button. I agree absolutely with the phrase snowballs into foolery. That would be a great band name, by the way. Snowballs into foolery. I would take that as a band name in a heartbeat. Let's give it a bit more time. Let's hit that like and subscribe button if you're just joining us, and let me know if there's anything you want to chat about when it comes to Freemasonry. Gonna give it a bit more time, see who else jumps on. No worries. You're at work. It's no trouble at all. Like I said, I'm just hanging out, waiting to see who else jumps in the chat to say hello before I start on this specific topic. Maybe I'll start on it a little bit earlier. Maybe 5-10 minutes in. I do like to give it a chance for people to jump on and say hello. Hello, raised eyebrow. I'm doing well. I hope you're doing well also. Thank you for being here. Koshi's actually kind of. I worked in a jail. I worked in a jail for 5 years. I was a rehab officer. So I worked with people when they were getting about to be released. And honestly, that kind of my involvement working in the jail did kind of color or affect some of my views when it came to somebody's out there right now. When it came to civic engagement. A lot of people leaving the jail had absolutely no community to go to, no supports, no healthy supports. They had a community, but the community was primarily taking advantage of them. So, kind of what do you expect to happen in those situations, if not a return to kind of bad habits and bad decisions? Bean Baby, is that solo? I'm trying to see your picture. It looks like a professional wrestler. What's the whole Mason thing about nowadays? My grandfather was one. He always used to recite these chants and show me his rings. He was in the Navy. I don't think he ever did Masonry type work, though. Well, no, Freemasonry, that's as well granite stone. They have to put the work in. Nothing is a silver bullet, not a civic group or anything else. They have to put the work in. Granite stone, that's a really good name to be on a Masonic stream. Please hit like and subscribe. Well, so masonry type work, that's referring to stone masonry, which I don't do either. I can't build anything out of stone to save my life or, make a wall or anything like that. What your grandfather was a part of, what I'm a part of, is Freemasonry, or speculative masonry it's called, which really, what it's about nowadays is kind of the same thing it was about in your grandfather's day. I don't know how old you are. I'm 40. My grandfather was also a Freemason, as was my dad. It's a social group. It's a social club. It's a form of civic engagement and civic involvement. The rings, the rituals, all that stuff is kind of dressing on what is ultimately something that humans have been doing in one form or another for millennia, which is forming groups, forming bonds within those groups, and forming brotherhoods or sisterhoods for that matter. And the rings and stuff is all a set dressing. I mean, I love Freemasonry. I think it's the most important of these types of groups because it has been around for so long and is so, important. But it's not, it's not the type of thing that's the impetus behind it is not unique, right? It's human nature. Awesome, as was mine, granite stone. So again, generationally, right, you have many fewer Masons in 2025 than you did granite stone in your father's day, perhaps, and certainly in your grandfather's day. And there's various reasons for that. Civic engagement in general is going down quite significantly. But, the Masons who are still around are still trying to carry on that legacy, as am I. I'm a Mason in Windsor, Ontario, Canada. I hope that kind of answered your question, Bean Baby, Granite Stone. I hope you'll hit the like and subscribe button. And I hope you'll let me know how you guys are doing if you have any other questions or thoughts on Freemasonry. And as always, hit that like and subscribe button. And yeah, if there is anything else, play Wonderwall. Hit the like and subscribe button and I'll play Wonderwall. Thank you, Ex Luthor. But sadly, I cannot play Wonderwall because my voice is terrible and it would be an embarrassment to Oasis fans everywhere. So I'm very sorry, Ex Luthor. You can unsubscribe if you so desire. But I don't want to ruin anybody else's day. Even though Black Raven would like me to ruin your day as well, I won't do that to you guys. I cannot play Creed. I can play nothing. I have no musical talent or ability at all. Well, yeah, there is what's called... I tried my best. There is what's called... When you say the book, I assume you're referring to ritual book, which is the book that you're given to learn your Masonic rituals, which you need to know to advance in degrees, as well as, take part in lodges. They're often written in ciphers, so non-Masons, if they do come across one of the books, can't read it anyways, because they're usually like just the first letter of each word, and it's up to you to go to a mentor to learn what the words actually are or what they mean. um, and to practice, right? For a long time, there was no book at all. It was all done exclusively, brother to brother. You go to your brother's house and you learn the ritual from the older, more experienced brother. That's how my dad did it back in his day. He said he used to love going to one brother's house because he had a wife who'd always cook them food and sandwiches. So, you know, yeah, I think a lot of Masons are not a fan of those books, to be honest. They prefer the old way of being forced to learn it kind of at the feet of another mentor. So, which I think both have their value, but in 2025, everybody's just so busy. It seems like it would be really, really hard to expect people to have the time to set aside, a few hours a week to meet with somebody, um, and go through the ritual with them. So honestly, Granite Stone, if you know your dad's lodge, like which lodge he belonged to or where they met, what you could always do is return that book to them. They would probably really appreciate it, along with any other Masonic items he has. If you want to keep them for yourself, that's fine, right? If your dad did not put any specific instructions in his will as to what to do with, let's say, his book or those items, then it's kind of up to you. But I always encourage Masons, if they want their items, their book, their aprons, whatever it is, to be returned to the Masonic building, to be returned to the Masonic Lodge, make sure you put that in your will so there's clear instructions. And if you want them with your family, then put that in your will as well. Or maybe you want some of your Masonic artifacts or items or possessions to go to your Masonic Lodge, and you want others to go to your family. You can separate out and list, these items go to my lodge, these items go to my family. Or you can, kind of just make sure there's instructions, make sure it's in the will, make sure it's clear. And also, I always recommend for the books, for the pins, for whatever it is, get them separately insured. That stuff helps out huge. It's a really big deal to have separate insurance for your Masonic items. Just some random bit of advice. I hope that helps you guys out. Please hit like, please hit subscribe if you're just joining us. I hope everybody is doing well. It also might have been Granite Stone. Sometimes the book, a small book, might actually have been the Lodge bylaws or even the Constitution of Grand Lodge, which reference the particular lodge or bylaws under which your dad would have been governed. Those aren't written in ciphers. They're usually just, I don't want to say just, they're usually what's the word I'm looking for? They're usually written in just plain language, and they'll have things like dress codes, meeting times, dues, etc., etc. Please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. Let's get started. I'll wait 15 minutes, then I'll start on the actual discussion, which again, civic engagement, crime, violence, how a reduction in one leads to an increase in the other, in my opinion at least. All right, let's give it another, like I said, 15 minutes or so, give or take. By the way, I've just started on a completely separate note. I've just started rewatching Angel on Disney Plus. What a great show that was. If you're a fan of the Buffyverse, maybe you're a fan of Angel as well. So good. All right, let's give it, like I said, another 10, 15 minutes. I was thinking again, what got me thinking about this subject was the recent shooting in New York City, which I guess happened yesterday. I understand, based on what I've been reading, there is 5 dead, the gunman of a self-inflicted injury, and then 4 others, all at a New York City building. But I understand the gunman, was from, I guess, Alabama. He traveled to New York City. I'll read the article soon. Claimed to have a brain disease or CTE, which I guess led to his wanting to target the National Football League. But we'll talk about it soon. I just want to give it a few more minutes to see who else jumps on. And in the meantime, if anybody has any questions, thoughts, or comments about Freemasonry outside of today's main topic, just jump in the chat and let me know. I'll do my best to answer them. Can't make any promises that I'll have the answers. But having been a Mason for approximately 20 years, I like to think I have some knowledge that can be of assistance. And thank you, everybody, for being here as always. So we have a long weekend here in Ontario. I don't know if it's a long weekend in America as well. I don't think it is, but our August 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th is a long weekend. So I'll be traveling back to one of my favorite places in the world, Glenview, Illinois, and Chicago, Illinois. And I will be hopefully taking part in 4 Masonic events throughout that day, which could be quite exhausting. That will be a record for me. The most I've ever done in terms of number of Masonic events in one day has been 3. So to take part in 4 Masonic events in one day, I think would be a lot of fun. I did the math. I did the calculations on Google Maps. It looks like I can take part in all 4. And it looks like I can do so without needing to use cabs or anything, but can just use my public transport. Oh. Sorry, I missed a bunch of messages. For some reason, they weren't coming through till now. Definitely liked. I was already really curious about it. I wanted to join when you used to tell me about it, but I want to get into it if it was 100% committed. I mean, I appreciate that, Bean Baby. Forgive me for not seeing some of these messages before. I appreciate the desire to want to commit yourself 100%. I don't believe that, like with everything in life, you should 100% do the thing you're doing at each moment. So you should be 100% a Mason, 100% a family person, 100% a coworker. Like give 100% to whatever you're doing, whatever time or whatever work you're doing. You should give 100% to it. There may be times in any Masonic career where you can't give 100% to Freemasonry at that particular moment, but that shouldn't be an excuse to then give just 10%, if that makes any sense at all. No one expects perfect attendance or perfect this or perfect that, but we expect you to give a full amount of effort. Jim Byfield says, damn. I assume you're saying damn because I'm super handsome. My older brother would deal with that. Yeah, I mean, again, if your dad didn't leave instructions, Granite Stone, if your father gave instructions as what he wants done with his Masonic possessions, then that's what you go with, right? That's what you default to. And it's important because you don't want to leave your family guessing, right? Like when I pass away, I don't want my, estate executors to be sitting there trying to guess like what I want done with my Masonic items or anything else. I want to make things as easy for them as I possibly can. I do remember you, Sharon Fox. Welcome back. What's new? Tell me something good. There's a lot of good things happening, raised eyebrow, including I will be going back to Chicago soon. I oil my head a lot, Minx. It makes it nice and shiny. That shooting story is so sad. Uh, I agree. Although interesting enough, godly unsung hero, I will point out, despite stories like the shooting, most statistics indicate crime is dropping overall, which I think is something we want to remember, even when we're covering stories like this. But it sometimes doesn't feel that way because so much of the emphasis on these stories, there's so much emphasis on discussing the more negative stories for whatever reason, right? So, no, that's fine. Masonic regalia is a good term to use. That'd be the correct term. Most expensive would be in Ontario would be the regalia for the Grand Master because he has the full fancy aprons, collars. He needs a suit with tails or a tuxedo with tails. Excuse me. He has the cuffs. Stuff's not cheap. I mean, oftentimes they didn't, which it was. I mean, I know. I'm not calling out your dad or anything. It's just a very common thing. Very few Masons did back in the day, which, as a consequence, meant, for example, oftentimes you would end up with Masonic artifacts being left in pawn shops or given to pawn shops, or they'd end up in estate sales, or they'd be found in a storage locker, or it could be a situation where it's like a grandfather passes away, his Masonic items go to his son, who doesn't really know what to do with them, so keeps them in a storage box. The son passes away, the grandson gets them, has no idea what they are, and then they end up getting pawned or sold in a estate sale, right? So to break that chain, those instructions are so vital and so important and so helpful. Yeah, and even a lot of times back in the day, people just didn't talk about being a Mason, right? I don't even know if I would call what I do bragging. I guess I do brag about being a Freemason, but it was very less common to talk about it, which is why sometimes you would have a father, grandfather pass away. The family would have no idea he was a Mason at all. Like the wife would know, the widow, the mom, but the kids would have no idea. And if they end up with a bunch of his Masonic possessions and they didn't even know he was a Mason, they might not know what to do with it at all. They might end up, like I said, that's how things end up in pawn shops or estate sales or the dump, heaven forbid. So, which obviously is something you never want to see as much as it can be avoided. So that's just, for whatever it's worth, a little piece of advice. Please make sure that when you get the chance and when you can, if you are a Mason, you let your family know, not just obviously that you're a Mason, but what you want done with those Masonic items when you get the chance. Because there's obviously a great danger in not providing information in advance. Trub, Timu, Donnie Wahlberg. Trub, Amunkin, how do you know that Donnie Wahlberg isn't the Timu Cameron Adamson, for the record? Please hit like and subscribe. I do remember you, Liam's fam. Welcome. Thank you for being here. I hope that you are doing well. Absolutely, that is true. Like I said, he is, in my humble opinion, the Timu Cameron Adamson. Please hit like and subscribe. Having said that, from what I hear, Donnie Wahlberg is actually a pretty cool dude. So let's do a few hundreds for Donnie Wahlberg, because I hear he was in one of my favorite horror movies, which was Dead Silence. 34 votes, by the way. Yes, 71%. No, 29%. Do you think engaging civic life community groups assist in crime reduction? Interesting. I thought the yeses would have it, but no is actually a little bit higher than I thought. Dead Silence is a great movie. I love horror, so it was created by the guy who created Saw, James Wan, and I love that movie. Went to see it on a date once upon a time. It was a good date. Okay, so I guess we can start on the subject. Or maybe. Or yeah, all right. So actually, I don't know where it's streaming, but if it is streaming somewhere, let me know because I'd love to watch it again. So again, keeping in mind that to my understanding and my knowledge, crime rates are actually dropping across the United States and Canada. I am not in any state. I am Canadian, Ontario, Windsor, Ontario. I think. Now, crime statistics are really hard to gauge, by the way. I just want to mention that as well. Because oftentimes, this has happened in my own life. I think we've seen it happen in other people's lives, or you may know people, right? Crimes can be unreported or underreported, especially property crimes. You come to your home, your office, there's graffiti, there's been trespassing, someone's broken a window. You depending on the nature of the violence, for example, you may call the police and report it as a crime. You may go to the insurance exclusively to try to get it repaired. You may just clean it up yourself and not tell anybody, right? Same thing with, let's say there's a robbery, an attempted robbery, but they don't get a lot of money, or you don't have your wallet on you, whatever it is. You may tell the police, you may not, right? Like, then there's also situations where you have a crime where it's multiple people involved in one offense. So is it multiple crimes? Does that count as, let's say, 4 crimes against one person, or is it 1 crime with 4 parties? Crime statistics are really, really tough, in my opinion, to accurately gauge. Crime in general is really tough to accurately gauge. Having said that, in my opinion, my caveat would be, it does seem that crime is dropping in the United States and Canada, according to the most recent statistics I've seen. But that doesn't mean there aren't still issues. There doesn't mean there's not more that can be done. And we're reminded of that, I guess it would have been yesterday, July 28th, where a gunman killed 4 at a New York City building. The most recent report I've seen, which was updated today at 11:53 a.m., advises or states that he was targeting NFL offices but took the wrong office, so said the New York City mayor. This is from CTV News. A gunman killed 4 people at a Manhattan office building before taking his own life. He claimed in a note to have brain disease linked to contact sports, and was trying to target the National Football League's headquarters but took the wrong elevator. Investigators believe Shane Tamura of Las Vegas was trying to get up to the NFL offices after shooting several people in the lobby on Monday, but he entered the wrong elevator banks, said the mayor. There were 4 people killed, including an off-duty city police officer. Tamura played high school football in California for nearly 2 decades, but never in the NFL. Had a history of mental illness. A 3-page note found his wallet suggested he had a grievance against the NFL over a claim that he suffered from chronic traumatic encephalopathy. The degenerative brain disease has been linked to concussions and other repeated head trauma common in contact sports, such as football, but can be diagnosed after someone has died. In the note, he repeatedly said he was sorry, asked his brain to be studied for CTE, according to the police department. I read that this was the 254th mass shooting in the United States this year, at least according to what I read. The officer, Islam, he was 36 years old and he'd served as a police officer for 3.5 years. His body was draped in the New York Police Department flag. It was moved from the hospital to an ambulance with fellow officers standing at attention. He was doing the job he was asked to do. He put himself in harm's way. He made the ultimate sacrifice. He died as he lived, a hero. For whatever it's worth, keep in mind, I think it's worth noting, the officer who was killed was himself an immigrant from Bangladesh, but still acted in a heroic manner for the city he loved, for the job that I'm sure he loved. I agree, godly unsung hero. It is a moment of madness and it's permanent, right? It's a moment of madness that results in permanent loss, permanent suffering, permanent loss, permanent suffering, permanent pain, right? There's a hole in the world now with, there's a 5-person sized and shaped hole in the world. But it got me thinking, and you talk about this, why people need support in more ways than one. I don't know what was happening in this person's life. He put the note, I guess he believed to be suffering from CTE and brain disease. I have no idea what's happening in this person's life or what's going on in his mind. Who had a history of mental illness. Would that there were people around him. Did he not feel that there's anybody around him that could support him, that he could go to talk to for help? Did he not have access to medical care, medical support? Also, though, did he not just have friends and people around him who could talk to him and try to help him? And by the same token, did he not have people around him who could recognize warning signs and either speak to him or contact the police and say, we have concerns that this person seems to be slipping, right? The social safety net of Freemasonry, and I've talked about this in the past, it's both a social safety net for an individual to keep them from falling, and also a social safety net to keep people, when they are falling, from then having a negative impact or a challenging impact on the community around them. So for example, one way you can look at this, and we'll put the violence of it aside for a moment, if John Smith, who is a Freemason, loses his home, loses his job, let's say, or has some type of massive medical expense, and now is at risk of not being able to pay for housing, not being able to pay his mortgage, pay his home, Freemasonry as a social safety net can step in and support that person, that brother, by giving him money to keep his home, to keep his shelter, to pay for food, whatever it is. So it's a safety net that protects that person, that brother, and that brother's family from losing housing, for example. But it's also a safety net that protects the community. Because if the brother does lose his home and you now have a situation where you have someone who is potentially forced to live on the streets with their family, potentially forced to use shelters for protection and shelter, potentially needs to use food banks. So Freemasonry as a social safety net in that situation is both protecting the individual and preserving resources that can go to others. In the same sense, with this situation, and we have no idea if anything could have stopped it, obviously, it's still very new, but the safety net aspect is again twofold. On the one hand, potentially in civic groups such as Freemasonry, there's a safety net there for the gunman himself to find people he can rely on, talk to, find support in order to maybe not feel he needs to do this, not feel that this is the only way. Maybe you could have had brothers steer him towards getting some type of mental health support, going to the hospital, checking himself in. Obviously, he was thinking not just of hurting others, but hurting himself. So do you get him on some type of hold at a hospital? But also, it's a social safety net for the community because, again, that could potentially prevent something like this from happening. I have no idea, again, if if the gunman was part of a civic group or civic organization. It could be, again, from Freemasonry, Oddfellows, Elks, who knows what it was. I have no idea if that would have stopped anything. We'll never know for sure, but it could have potentially provided some type of benefit or some type of assistance, right? I mean, according to the National Crime Prevention Council, this was from 2023, a community engagement means bigger drops in crime. This was a statement from the National Crime Prevention Council on 2023 FBI crime data attributed to Executive Director Paul Delpointe. Violent crime dropped. So, September 24th, 2024, violent crime dropped again in the US. This is from 2024. That is obviously good news, but that alone doesn't necessarily mean people feel a greater sense of security. A feeling of safety is closely tied to a sense of unity. Many Americans see that slipping away. Engaging citizens in their own safety and security is the best way to both reduce crime and make people feel safer. The same FBI data also shows an increase in hate crimes and car theft. Both crimes reduce a sense of unity and trust. So even though crime overall is dropping, in 2024 they saw an increase in hate crimes and car theft. The real strength of examining the annual crime numbers is to spot trends, not to score political points. Empowering people at the community level to take a bite out of crime should be the goal, because that's the one thing criminals hate. Welcome back to Fantastic Five. There was something I wanted to... So this was from 2023, from the National Library of Medicine, National Center for Biotechnology Information. Researchers have documented that vacant lot greening can reduce community-level crime and violence. Busy streets theory. Welcome Brick suggests that residents who are involved in the greening process can help improve physical environments and build social connections, which is what Freemasonry does as well. It ultimately is a group of social connections that deter crime and violence. Yet few researchers have explored how community engagement in the greening process may affect crime and violent outcomes. It is. I mean, and both are important. Like, I don't, because I was a probation officer for years. I worked in jail for years. I don't want to, what's what I'm looking for? I don't want to downplay the value of focusing on recidivism, because it's not just about reducing crime. Like, prevention is important, but also preventing recidivism is valuable as well. But civic engagement can, I think, prevent both or reduce both. It can reduce, crime in general, as well as give people a place to go if they've made a mistake but want to recover from it and live a better life. No worries, Courtney. Thank you for being here. It can give people a place to go to feel like they're getting their life back together, to feel like they're engaged, to feel like even though they committed whatever crime it is they committed, that they can improve their lives and still be part of something greater than themselves. Now, you need to balance that out with different requirements. For example, let's say you commit a crime and as a consequence, one of your, you're on probation and you have a condition, curfew condition, or you're on house arrest. Well, then that is not the time to be out part of a community group while you're on house arrest, for example. You need to kind of you need to follow what the law has said. You need to follow what your conditions are, what your probation officer says, what the police say. But within that framework, can you find a way to take part and participate? That stuff is key, and that stuff is what matters, right? I can tell you the temperature here is way too hot, way too hot. And there's also civic engagement where it comes to, for example, Masons or Freemasons connecting with police. Border Cities Lodge has, which is the lodge of which I'm worshipful master, has had 2 coffees with a cop where one coffee with a cop, where we invited Windsor Police to come to a coffee club. Windsor Police met with our community members as well as our lodge members. We talked about both issues we were seeing in terms of crime in our area, where the Masonic Temple is, as well as ways that we can support trying to make our community safer and ways that we can support police and things we need from police. And that's an example of community engagement between law enforcement and community or civic groups. We were that a couple days ago, Granite Stone, but it's, thank heavens, has cooled off because I was absolutely dying, believe me. I do not like the heat. Speaking of, this is an article from Federal Probation, a Journal of Correctional Philosophy and Practice, Volume 68, Number 2. In the reentry process out of jail, which is something I've seen, the community is at the same time both a major stumbling block and a major resource. On the one hand, overall decline in community involvement and civic commitment has been identified as a general problem facing democratic societies. Putman, 2000, Barber, 1982. In that regard, prospects for sustaining safe, productive, and economically viable civic life in communities confronted with thousands of persons returning from prison appear to be even more greatly diminished. One primary reason for this is structural obstacles to productive citizenship faced by persons currently or former under correctional supervision. By the way, productive citizenship could be a synonym for Freemasonry. Actually, I think productive citizenship is a synonym for Freemasonry. I'm going to make a note of that. Although widespread restriction of voting rights, okay, people make mistakes, right? Just do what your probation officer tells you, you'll be fine. But people make mistakes, whether it be a misdemeanor or otherwise. My view on it was always, whatever got you in front of me, treat me with respect, treat the process with respect, and I will treat you the same way. That was always the goal, at least, in which I tried to act. Although widespread restriction of voting rights has recently captured public attention, this barrier is but one component of a broader array of institutional roadblocks facing persons convicted of felony offenses in the community to which they will return. Both inmates and those under community supervision, probation, are denied or inhabited access to a variety of roles that bind most citizens to conventional society. Well, Granite Stone, usually in my experience, the probation officer 9 times out of 10 is just a mirror for the person on the other side of the desk. So if you thought that he was cool, it's probably because you were acting cool as the client, right? In my experience, all of the, usually and very often, probation officers reflect, the coolness, quote unquote, of a probation officer is a reflection of the nature of the client, nature of the person on probation, how they're acting, usually a good gauge, right? It's funny, I once had a fellow probation officer. He was a really good dude, but he told me once, if everybody thinks you're cool, then you're probably doing something wrong as a probation officer. And if nobody thinks you're cool, then you're probably doing something wrong as a probation officer, which I always try to keep in mind. Because personal and civic identity is largely determined by the relative strength of our ties to various social institutions, restrictions on community involvement greatly diminish the reintegrative capacity of persons formerly under correctional supervision. In turn, having substantial proportions of such disconnected individuals concentrated in certain areas greatly diminishes both the human and social capital of these environments. Where Freemasonry does not exist, social capital does not exist. As the informal network that sustains a meaningful commitment to the common good, the relevance of social capital for public safety is found in its capacity to mobilize informal social control. Unfortunately, traditional policy and practice governing parole and other forms of reentry have been woefully inadequate in working to overcome these obstacles. Thank you, Courtney. I appreciate that. I don't disagree, Godly Unsung. I used to talk about this a lot when I used to run programs for people about getting out of jail and what to kind of expect and how to kind of prepare. The two most stressful times for most people was, when they first got into jail and they're terrified, and then when they first get released from jail or about to get released from jail. Because now they have to worry about, social supports, paying rent, getting a job, family commitments, probation. All these things that they kind of did not have to worry about while they were in jail are now once again becoming an issue for them. So, it's very stressful being released without supports. Where is it? Unfortunately, traditional policy and practice governing parole and other forms of reentry have been woefully inadequate in working to overcome these obstacles. Moreover, reentry protocols have been characterized by a disconnect between research, theory, and community-oriented intervention. And again, community-oriented intervention can mean John Smith got out of jail, how's he doing? But it can also mean John Smith has never committed a crime, but seems to be really struggling. He's talking in ways that I'm not comfortable with. Can we intervene by either calling the police, suggesting you go to the hospital, taking him to the hospital? Again, there's only so much anybody can do. There's no guarantee that any one particular crime could be stopped by community-oriented interventions, but I believe if you have community-oriented interventions before every crime is about to be committed, you will see a overall reduction. You don't know which ones will work, which ones won't, but at that point, it's a numbers game, not to put it crassly, and you just want to see a number reduce as much as possible. Right? The general purpose of the paper is to demonstrate the need for broad-based theoretical and policy-focused effort directed towards strengthening the role of civic and community commitments in the re-entry process. And I would also argue it's worth considering it in the, again, community support, community-oriented intervention process in general. Drawing on civic reintegration literature, a civic engagement intervention model that can be used to develop and test the impact of strategies that seek to strengthen commitments in a variety of citizenship domains associated with effective reentry. Citizenship domain could include and not be limited to Freemasonry. Right? We want to weaken barriers to the development of pro-social identities for persons who have been under correctional supervision, alter community image of such persons, mobilize community capacity to provide informal support and assistance. I mean, people decide those things all the time, right? That's one of the trade-offs people make. Do you want to spend a little bit of time in jail, or do you want to get probation and it's longer but you're not in jail? Do you want to, you see that with a lot of times, one thing that concerns me is the idea of people saying, I could probably beat this in court, but the court will take, several months to a year, and it's going to cost me a lot of money, so I'm going to plead guilty in order to just get the court over with. Right? Like, those trade-offs, they're unfortunate that they exist. but they do exist. But at least in your case, you're able to spend time with your pops, um, and watch him, I guess, with your brother. So, I mean, at least you did get that, which I think is a good thing. But those trade-offs, people kind of are always making those trade-offs, and it's tough. It's hard to figure out how those trade-offs will or will not work, right? Um, but I know it's hard for a lot of people. So, and by the way, this is not to say, when I'm talking about this, that I expect, for example, Freemasons to start, for example, visiting jails and recruiting. Part of it is because we don't recruit anybody in jail or otherwise. That's not what Freemasonry is for. Rather, it's more an understanding. I think more what I'm saying is to non-Masons, when people ask, like, why is Freemasonry important? Why does it matter? It's because it provides another potential safety net, another potential support system, which is important to keep strong because it can potentially provide a space for someone who was incarcerated to, a group to join, to develop pro-social supports, to develop pro-social community feelings, to develop a pro-social sense of himself. Because now he's joined something where he's getting degrees, he's advancing through Freemasonry, he's learning more about what he's capable of, what he can do, he's developing public speaking skills, he may even in some ways develop job skills. He's going to learn how meetings operate, how to run a meeting, develop more self-confidence in himself. By service to others, he can then start to feel like he's not always just been, quote unquote, taking community resources, but is actually giving something back. And so in those senses, it's one of those things where it's like, yes, not everybody who has been to jail will consider joining Freemasonry. Not everybody who is thinking of committing a crime will join Freemasonry and decide not to join Freemasonry. It's more about the general idea of you increase the number of civic groups and strengthen the civic groups that exist, including Freemasonry, and we are bound to catch sooner or later some of these people and help them from either committing a crime or re-offending. It's kind of like, you throw a net into water, leave it for a day, you can't guarantee that you will catch any one particular fish, right? But you can guarantee you will catch some fish, and you find out after the fact. In the same way, as you strengthen Freemasonry, that doesn't mean you're going to stop every crime. You can't point to any particular crime and say, Freemasonry will stop that crime. What you can say, though, is if it's strong enough, it will stop some. And the irony is, you'll never know for sure which ones you stop, because they stopped, they didn't happen, right? So there's not going to be any stats on the successes, right? That's awesome. I'm glad you saw that, Courtney. That's really, really cool. I mean, a good way to look at it for that, and this is something I think about, is I'm missing both of my legs above the knees. I was born that way. But I took part in something called the War Amputations Child Amputee Program, the CHANT program. It was a program designed to help child amputees with prosthetic limbs, social supports, things like that. And one thing that they also had was this program called Play Safe. And what Play Safe is because a lot of kids were losing their limbs in accidents that could have been, prevented, in different ways, they started to do these programs where they go to different schools, community groups, and they would talk about, like, these are some dangers that you face, these are how to avoid them, so you don't, lose your limbs in an accident. And somebody once asked me, how many injuries has Play Safe prevented? And the answer was, like, how can we know, right? Because if they're prevented, unless somebody calls and says, I was going to be in an accident, but then I thought of this and we record it somewhere, there's no way to know how many we've actually prevented. I feel like Freemasonry and civic engagement and crime is the same way. I know personally of Masons who are going down a dark path and then turned it around because they had support from their brothers. I also know some Masons who are going down a dark path and ended up continuing down that dark path, and Masonry wasn't enough to help them, which is unfortunate. But the point is, those Masons who turned around and stopped going down this dark path and found support and help, that, you know, that success isn't recorded in like some national statistic. And so we can't know how many people have, for example, not committed suicide because they had a Masonic lodge meeting to go to. How many people decided not to commit crimes because they had Masonic support? What we can know is all the evidence that I've ever seen as a probation officer, as someone who worked in a jail. All the evidence shows that those individuals who do not have pro-social supports are either alone and isolated or are themselves around, you know, negative supports, are more likely to reoffend and commit another crime than those who have positive supports. Jaden, that is not the case. School is awesome. I like my forehead, Viper. It's great. It's so disconnected nowadays. I don't disagree. People do not seem are not connecting like they did before, which is a scary thing. And again, we can't know how many crimes would have been prevented if not for Freemasonry, but I truly believe, based on my experiences, that some have been. I also think some, you know, people who are contemplating suicide probably did not do so because they had a Masonic lodge meeting to go to. So you have to keep those things in mind, right? Like, this stuff matters, right? And one of the things, well, I think it depends on how you take it, right? When you say beneficial, not beneficial, I think sometimes the knowledge itself is beneficial. So how to read, how to write, how to add and subtract, that stuff is beneficial. Sometimes it's more the process by which you learn. So, you know, researching, if I'm asked in school to do a paper on the history of the Detroit River shipping lanes, or the history of goods and services shipped through the Detroit River, or goods even, services not so much. The history of goods shipped on the Detroit River. I may not care about shipping or the Detroit River, but the skills I will develop in learning how to research that topic, how to look into that topic, how to write well on that topic, I can then take those skills and apply them outside of school. That's true for Freemasonry as well, right? I may have no interest in being a worshipful master of a Masonic lodge, but if I'm showing up regularly, paying attention, I will learn how the worshipful master runs a meeting well, how the worshipful master runs a meeting successfully, and in doing so, I can apply those skills outside of Freemasonry. I like gym as well, Granite Stone. I love gym. Gym was a lot of fun. I liked recess too. I liked lunchtime. I liked taking naps in class. Please, if you're joining us, take a moment, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We're talking about Freemasonry and its potential, you know, mitigating factors on crime. I just rewatched Dodgeball the movie. Great movie. Kind of reminded me a little bit of Freemasonry in some ways. The LaFleur's kind of attitude towards his people in the gym and his friends, right? And caring about them and wanting them to be supported. It's good. Just had a great show this weekend. It was an absolute blast. And how excited are you, Courtney? 1 week exactly as of today. You must be very excited, I'm sure. I know you've been thinking about it for a while, so we're all excited for you. right? Emphasis draws on the focus more explicitly on communities and their role in reentry. For example, people observe that criminal behavior is most effectively addressed by tapping into the problem-solving capacities and resources of the communities from which it emerges, such as Freemasonry. Oh, I used to really support. I used to talk to the people I worked with in the jail, clients, inmates, pick your term, about meditation, about breathing exercises. That stuff was always something I really tried to emphasize. It's something I'm trying to bring to Freemasonry as well. Breathing exercises, meditation, things like that. Where was it? I just missed the part. Others have engaged community groups as a key factor in reentry and reintegration with specific reference to, for example, their role in human development and ethnic identity. Moreover, while the traditional deficit focus on offender risks and needs remains dominant in much practice and policy discussion, a more strength-based perspective on offenders in community context has begun to surface. Although these discussions have become increasingly sophisticated for the most part, they have occurred in the absence of clear theoretical frameworks, etc., etc. Teaching the Pensana in India's toughest prison. Oof, I would not want to be in India's toughest prison. I will check it out for sure. Thank you so much for the suggestion. I truly, truly appreciate it. By the way, if you're just joining us, please take a moment, hit that like and subscribe button if you get the chance. I will be back on tonight at 1 a.m. as well as my usual, and then again tomorrow at 1 p.m. When I see Dom, I think of Lost and Dharma from Lost, one of my favorite shows from back in the day. That's all you can do is patiently look forward to it. Like everything else, there's only so much you can actually do. You can't rush it, you just got to take your time with it. But yeah, there are coming up, and this is on the Illinois Masons website. Gonna switch topics for a bit. I'll be coming back to it though. But let me know what you thought generally of my comments thus far, if you think it makes sense. If you recognize the potential benefit of social connections in reducing crime, either recidivism or just reducing crime in the first place. But there is, life is liminal space, right? Take that to mean what you will. That means you're kind of always patiently waiting for something. But coming up August 2nd, there is, let's see, I don't know for sure if I can hit all 4 of these. Which the air a granite stone. Thank you, Godly Unsung. I appreciate that. Yeah, going back to even right, this was, let's see if I can find it now. There was an article written, I'm trying to pull it up. Which is not coming up for some reason. I had it a second ago. Sociology and criminology open access, creating safe spaces, the role of community engagement in crime prevention. This was from, I don't have a date on this, written by Garrick Yama, 13th Tribe. Okay. Crime prevention is a multifaceted approach aimed at reducing the risk of crime and enhancing public safety. It encompasses a range of strategies and initiatives designed to determine criminal behavior before it occurs. By focusing on the root causes of crime and encourage community engagement, effective crime prevention can lead to safer neighborhoods and improved quality of life for all residents. Crime prevention involves proactive measures that aim to stop crimes before they happen. This can include efforts at various levels, such as individual, community, and governmental initiatives. The main goals of crime prevention are to reduce opportunities for crime, increase likelihood of prevention of offenders, and address underlying social issues. Notice individual and community initiatives. I never really watched cartoons, Courtney. I mean, as a kid, in the 80s, I watched Thundercats when I was a kid. But then by the time I was 90s, I was 9, 10, I kind of grew out of cartoons. I never really... never really was a huge fan of it. Effective crime prevention strategies. Community policing. I'm not a fan of that term. I know what it means, but it sounds like what they're saying is we as the community should be acting as police officers, which I don't think is the case. But I do think we as a community should support the police. And what we have here, building strong relationships between law enforcement and communities is important, which I'm proud to say we as Border Cities Lodge have done. Community policing initiatives involve police officers working collaboratively with residents to identify and solve local issues. This approach promotes trust and encourages community members to take an active role for their safety. Overlord 947. Welcome. Please hit like and subscribe if you've not done so before. That's a really tough question. I'm trying to think of the right way to answer it, because I want to be really careful how I say this. How do I put this in a way that makes sense? I don't want to live in a society with a 0% or non-existent crime rate, because I would worry about what the government or other groups would need to do to get us to a non-existent crime rate. Like, for example, Minority Report, the movie, right? Famously, they're arresting people before they commit crimes because they can see the future. And it's one of those situations where it's like, they have a 0% crime rate, or, The Purge. Like, how do you get a 0% crime rate? Human beings are inherently, for better or worse, in my opinion, human beings are inherently flawed. They often lean towards the sign of kind of foolish or stupid or cruel or whatever it is, in an attempt to stamp that out and get to a 0% crime rate. Will there have to be a significant reduction in certain types of civil liberties? Now, why I think Freemasonry is important is I want to live in a society where the emphasis is on tolerance, kindness, forgiveness, being a team player, right? Being a team player, being willing to sacrifice some of your own freedoms in order to see the group grow, being, accepting of forgiveness. I don't want to see jails where the primary purpose is to punish and harm. I'd rather see jails where the purpose is either to rehabilitate or simply to provide a safe, hygienic space in which, someone can be removed from society for their or other people's safety. right? So I don't believe it's possible to get to a non-existent crime rate without significant social liberty trampling. Rather, I believe that what we as a society should focus on is forgiveness, kindness, and always trying to reduce crimes as much as we can without going to the point of punishment for punishment's sake, or shunning of them, right? Because again, we could in theory shun people, lock them away forever. I think what Freemasonry and other groups would say is no, we want to provide support if we can, while also respecting the laws and the rules and the conditions and all of that, if that makes any sense at all. And I know it's easy for me to say because I've been very lucky in my life, even with no legs. I'm a bigger dude, I'm a guy. I've never felt in threat or in danger in the way, let's say, a woman walking alone might if she's approached by a man. I get that, but I think you also have to take into account the other side of it as well. Uh, Again, I mean, I'm sure there are people who were wrongly convicted, innocent. I'm sure there are people who, made a mistake but had a particularly harsh judge or harsh sentence for whatever reason. My view on it was always, and when I worked in the jail, what I would always tell people is, I don't care how you got in front of me. I don't care whether you are the most evil of criminals or, you shoplifted a chocolate bar. Like, however it is you came in front of me, treat me with respect, treat the process with respect, treat the system with respect, treat your fellow inmates with respect, and we will, find a way to make it through, and I will do my best to help and support you. So when you get out of jail, you have an opportunity to, try to lead a fulfilling life. Because ultimately, the extent to which I have success as a probation officer, as somebody working in jail, is the extent to which the people I'm meeting with have a successful life, both while in jail, while on probation, and then afterwards. So, my dad was a veteran, did police work. You should be proud of him, Granite. You should be proud of him. Being a veteran, doing police work. It sounds like he was the type of person who really cared about the community, which I think is something that you should take a great deal of pride in. I have heard of the Stanford Prison experiment. I know it fairly well. I'm actually not a fan of that experiment I don't think it as conclusive as people think it is. I mean, I agree with the general premise, which is if you give people unlimited power, they are likely to abuse that power. But I have a lot of concern with the methodology of that experiment, and also I think they got some things kind of incorrect about it. But the general idea is, yeah, you need checks and balances. You can't, tell people, okay, you can't let people be a prison guard and let them do whatever they want. Sooner or later, problems are going to develop. You need a series of checks and balances. You need support for everybody. You need support for the guards in a jail as well, the correctional officers. They need to feel supported. If they don't, that creates their own problems as well. No, ungodly, that does not shock me at all. In my experience, that is the case as well. Recidivism is lowered not through punishment, but rather through rehabilitation and some type of basic level of respect. Again, not for everybody. There's always going to be exceptions, but that's been my experience. What steps can individuals take to protect themselves? Well, I mean, what is the type of potential harm you're discussing, right? If you're talking about harm they may do to themselves through bad decisions, be part of a social group, be part of a club, be part of a group that can check in on you, make sure you're doing okay. Beyond that, I mean, I'm no expert. Obviously, security systems at home, potentially some type of self-defense class, having neighbors that you know and that you trust and that can check in on you as well. Checking in regularly, having cell phones charged. I mean, there's a lot of different ones. A lot of ones I can't even think of now. I think it's just a matter of a core lot of this is about being part of the community. Yeah, even I would say, I don't even think necessarily godly unsung, I don't even know if necessarily rehab should be the number one goal, um, nor should punishment. What I would say is the number one goal of, in my opinion, the number one goal of a jail should be, first and foremost, to provide a safe, clean, and hygienic environment in which a individual can serve whatever time is required of him to serve by the judge. So if the judge says, 5 years in jail, then for the next 5 years, it behooves the government or the jail to make sure that person is in a location that is clean and that is safe and that is hygienic. Right? Or if the judge says, court is in 3 weeks, you need to stay in jail for those 3 weeks until court, same thing. It's about making sure he's in a place that is clean, that is safe, and that is comfortable for those 3 weeks. After that, the second goal, I think, should be rehabilitation, various times. And then the third goal should be punishment. And even the rehabilitation, part of that includes also his condition. So, for example, if John Smith has been, let's say, convicted of an offense, and the judge has said you are not to attend 123 Smith Street upon your release, because that's the location where, let's say, he stole from or on robbery, whatever it is. Part of rehabilitation is keeping him accountable by calling that location and saying 123 Smith Street, this person is not allowed to be near your location. If you see him, if he is, call the police. It is, sometimes those programs run well, sometimes they don't, or those deals. I always think you need to be careful of them, but yeah, there's a lot of plea deals that take place. Whether they're good or not is kind of another question altogether. Please take a moment, if you're just joining us, to hit that like and subscribe button. Don't forget, I'll be back on at 1 a.m. as well. Challenges to crime prevention. Primary prevention of crime strategies is an approach that includes or targets social and environmental factors that contribute to crime, seeks to address issues like poverty, lack of education, social disorganization, programs aimed at youth development, community engagement, and social services. Secondary precautions or preventions focuses on identifying individuals or groups at risk of engaging in criminal behavior. Targeted interventions such as mentoring programs, job training, and substance abuse treatment aim to redirect at-risk individuals away from crime. By addressing specific needs, programs can mitigate factors that lead to criminal activities. And once again, I hope everybody is doing well. Granite Stone, and again, that's a tough one. The danger is, right, so let's say, heaven forbid, somebody commits a crime against a child and they apply for a job at a daycare. Employers should probably discriminate against the record, right? You need to everything's a balance in life, right? But it is absolutely a huge danger and a huge self-fulfilling prophecy of you can't get a job, so you're more desperate, you have nobody to support you, so you commit a crime, you go to jail, now you really can't get a job because you have 2 charges. It's like once the justice system gets a hold of you, it can be challenging to get out of it. And sometimes that's the person's own fault. Sometimes it's so it's tough. It's just really, really tough. A sick woman said while dying, enjoying sunset, sit down. I mean, sometimes conversations like that are really nice. Simple, short, just enjoy the moment, you know? I mean, I do, yeah, you want to give people an opportunity, right? Let them prove themselves. Alonzo, thank you for being here, Alonzo. Please hit like and subscribe. I mean, I believe in the Supreme Being. I believe the Supreme Being favors virtuous actions, including civic duties and charity. So I agree with that. I think karma tends to reward the same. And I think that, yeah, I support that. I support that as an idea 100%. Sue Yog, welcome as well. Please hit like and subscribe if you've not done so. I truly, truly appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. Yes, Becky, you should. I know you're probably being sarcastic because I say it all the time, but I like to repeat it often because I don't know who's going to be joining and when they're going to be joining and how long they're going to stay. So, you know. And you should also hit the like button. You should also support me on Patreon. You should also let me know if you have any thoughts on Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral. I'd love to hear them. I agree, Courtney, lack of education plays a major role. Honestly, that was one of the things I was most proud of during my time working at the jail is helping people get into educational programs, both secondary school to help them graduate, as well as at university level programs. So I was really proud of both of them. So my dad was a Mason, and I was very lucky to. I was very, very lucky that I got to grow up seeing a lot of it. So I always knew I'd join. And then when I moved to Windsor and realized I'd be staying for a while, I decided, you know what, I'm going to join and hang out. Feeling wanted is a huge deal. Feeling wanted is a big part of what Freemasonry does. It fulfills the need of social group or support, which is, if I recall correctly, third on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, to feel belonging. So a lot of people are motivated to join Masonry to fulfill the need of belonging, as well as you know, the gamification motivation, the motivation of wanting some type of epic meaning or journey or status. I mean, people are idiots in general, right? Not just employers. It's human nature, unfortunately. Well, if you're just joining us, please jump in the chat, say hello. I hope that you will let me know what you think of what I've been talking about, and also if you have any other questions or thoughts. Welcome back, M1A2. Thank you for being back once again. I truly appreciate it. I hope you're doing well. Answer our poll question and let me know how it's going in your neck of the woods. And if you have any thoughts on Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral, I'd love to hear them. I know a lot of people, like I said, have different views, which is fine. I've dealt with, unfortunately, even people have negative views in Freemasonry. I love talking to them because it helps me strengthen my responses to those views. So please hit like, please hit subscribe, jump in the chat. Let me know what you thought of what I've said thus far. Going on to what I plan for this weekend to celebrate the long weekend. You're welcome, Granite Stone. I enjoy talking. I really do love talking to people. There is coming up in Illinois 4 events all happening this weekend. Today, not that long, probably another hour or so, give or take. I am considering, Rondo, doing another 24-hour live stream in August because I really enjoyed the last one. I was thinking maybe, to be completely insane, 30 hours, but I don't know how I'd do that yet. I need to find somebody else to stream with me for sure at that one. So on August 2nd, there is Loyal Lodge is having an annual family picnic. Loyal Lodge is located in Skokie, Illinois, but the picnic is going to be in Morton Grove, followed by, which is north of Chicago, but not very far north. Then you have Kelvin Park, Wilmington, Jefferson Park Festival, Jeff Fest, which is in Chicago at the Jefferson Park, which is very close to Jefferson Masonic Temple. Then you have Oak Lawn having a smoked brisket and ribs dinner at Oak Lawn Masonic Temple. And then you have Madison Lodge Slammers Baseball Night. All of that starts at 1 p.m., goes to 10 p.m. Can I make it to all 4? That is the question. Believe me, this is why you want to follow me on social media, because I will be keeping you guys up to date and informed on all of my travels. And if I can make it to all 4, I'd want to do it where I don't just show up for a minute and then go. Like, I'd want to make sure I'm doing all 4 justice. At the very least, getting to steal all of their food. But yeah, it would be really fun, I think, to check out. So I'm going to try that. I'm going to see how it goes. Therefore, let us not judge one another anymore, but rather resolve this, not to put a stumbling block or cause this to fall in a brother's way. There you go. And the fact that it says brother's way as well, I think that's really, really cool. I hope, by the way, everybody is doing well. So, could I do it? That's the question. It looks like, according, if I took transit, I'd have to spend like 5 minutes at most at each location before going on to find the next one, which would be. But if I started early, arrived early, I don't know. It's very tempting. If you think I could do all 4 in one, throw some hearts in the stream. Thank you, Lapis. I tried to be cool. I don't know if I always succeeded, but that's a whole other can of tuna. What I was saying before, I don't know if you heard me on the stream, is your probation officer is usually a reflection of you if you're on probation. So if you're a cool dude and you're treating people well and the process well, then your probation officer is likely to be a cool guy as well. Really? I did not know that. Let me look that up. Greg Abbott, Texas Masonic Scholarship Week. Okay. That's really interesting. Liberty, yeah. Governor Greg Abbott has given official recognition to Masonic lodges across the state of Texas by designating May 9th to 13th, 2022 as Texas Masonic Scholarship Week. Brad Billings, a great guy, issued a proclamation which in part makes the following statements. Whereas Freemasons have supported education in Texas since the days of the Republic, often allowing the first floors of their buildings to be used as schoolrooms and at times paying the salaries of teachers. And whereas Texas Masons in 2022, in conjunction with the Texas Masonic Charities Foundation, will give away approximately $2.4 million in scholarships. And whereas Texas Freemasonry has given over $16 million in scholarships since 2010. And whereas almost 600 Texas lodges offer scholarships to deserving Texas students. And whereas Governor Greg Abbott issued a proclamation on April 22nd, 2022, commending many Masonic lodges across the Lone Star State to their commitment to education and supporting Texas students. Liberty Masonic Lodge, number 48, will provide a total of 8,000 scholarships for selected graduating seniors at the school's annual awards banquet. Very cool. Granted, I mean, it'd be wonderful to have you join. Obviously, you have to do so if you are financially able and have the time. If you have a job that requires you to work a lot of nights, you might not be able to attend meetings. It may be better to wait. But I'm sure if you joined, it'd be wonderful. You know, Freemasonry is not super expensive. For me, it costs about $500 per year, but I'm a member of 5 lodges, probably $600. If you're a member of one lodge, it'll probably cost you between $100 and $200 US per year in dues, and a one-time payment of between $500 to $1,500 approximately. Those are relative numbers. Freemasonry could be your family, right? Who's to say there's a difference? And thank you to everybody who took the time to answer our poll question. I truly appreciate it. Please, as always, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. That's a good deal. I mean, I don't know if that would be true for every lodge, Courtney, right? Different lodges will have different amounts, I'm assuming, in Texas. Some might be more, some might be less. Especially, my suspicion is smaller towns are probably going to be less expensive dues, or lodges in smaller towns, because the cost of the lodge will probably be less. It's just my guess. I'm glad that you met people who are treating you so well, Godly. That's one of the things I tell Freemasons is, you know, whatever you're talking about it, you are yourself a, you know, you're an ambassador for Freemasonry. So act in a professional, informative manner. right? That's a really, really valuable and important thing. I'm just basically, I think we're done the stream for now, or done the topic part of the stream. Now it's back to just, let's see if anybody has any questions, any thoughts, any comments. I will do my best to answer them. I can't make any promises I'll be able to answer every question, but I will try my best for sure, and see what I can do. Or honestly, this is another one of those we can talk about anything we want to streams. That's one of the fun parts about these streams, is that sometimes the most fun is just hanging out and seeing what people want to talk about. And tonight I will be back on with the same topic as right now, or this morning, 1 a.m. tomorrow. Same topic, Freemasonry, crime reduction, why I think civic engagement in general can actually be so incredibly helpful when it comes to crime and criminal reduction. So please keep that in mind. We will be talking soon. So that'll be this morning or tomorrow morning, 1 a.m. But for now, let's just wait to see if anybody else jumps in the chat to say hello. Mentioning that gunman in Manhattan again, which I've been to Manhattan once, very briefly, but obviously hearts go out to everybody. NYPD sending teams to Las Vegas to search for motive in shooting. Yes, I think when I do my next 24-hour stream, that may be what I start with, because obviously you need a lot of content to do a 24-hour stream. So sharing my Masonic items might be worth a 24-hour stream there. So that'll probably be what I do, because I have a ton, and honestly that'll probably take a couple hours in and of itself, maybe more. Rosalie says hi. Hello, Rosalie. I hope you're doing well. It will be cool. I mean, obviously, again, 24-hour live stream. We'll survive it, though. I did it before, and I made it. By the way, the Manhattan mass shooting was the 250th of the year yesterday. There were also mass shootings in Atlanta, Reno, and Detroit. Detroit's right across the river from me. So it needs to be an all hands on deck. We need to think about, in my opinion, in the States, I'm from Canada, there's gun control, gun reform, there's mental health supports, there's community supports. All hands on deck, in my oh so humble opinion. Otherwise known as a multifaceted approach. But I hope everybody watching this is doing well. Like I said, get a bit more time, see if anyone else wants to chat about anything before we kind of end off this stream. And let me know if you think I can make it to the 4 Masonic events happening August 2nd. We've got... Gonna be very busy. But we've got Loyal Lodge in Morton Grove, Illinois. Kelvin Park Willing Lodge in Chicago, the Northern Park, Jefferson Park, Oak Lawn Masonic Temple in Oak Lawn, and then Madison Lodge in Joliet. I'd agree with that. I think almost everybody would agree with that. Hopefully, they agree with that, that something has to change. We'll see. Kind of, again, it's one of those things where I think a lot of what gets to people now is this feeling of almost hopelessness, like nothing will ever change, so what's the point? But we cannot give in to nihilism, despite the fact that I think it can become hard to, right? I think one thing Freemasonry kind of encourages us is to not give in to nihilism. I have, ages ago. I enjoyed it. I like psychological horror. I think that's a lot of fun. So my favorite of the psychological horror thrillers would actually be Mulholland Drive by David Lynch. But Jacob's Ladder's up there. Mostly from the States, to be honest, but we have CTV, CBC. Haven't seen The Rule of Jenny Penn, but that's on Tubi, I think, so maybe I'll have to watch it. By the way, Phillies at White Sox, starting at 7:40 p.m., at least Eastern time, I think. I got to see a White Sox game. The White Sox are kind of my team, so fingers crossed they win. Go White Sox. Let's just wait to see, once again, who else jumps in the chat to say hello. If there's anything else we want to talk about, then we will, like I said, we will be ending this stream, but we'll be back tonight, tomorrow morning, 1 a.m., same topic, and then Wednesday, 1 p.m. as well. What's the Rule of Jenny Penn about? And I'm trying to remember. I think I saw a synopsis once. New Zealand psychological horror film based on Owen Marshall's short story of the same name. Care home, rugby player. No, I love being here. It's a lot of fun. Maybe I'll see if I can. Who knows? I'm looking for another movie to watch tonight. Maybe I'll watch that one. Ooh, looks like it's on Shudder Amazon channel. Yeah, I will definitely check that out. I mean, and again, I think the thing to keep in mind is it doesn't have to be exclusive to Freemasonry, right? Like what we could do is, and I love Tubi, as Courtney knows, what we could do is, you know, you can apply some of these things to like Masonic lodges, Masonic bodies, right? Like for example, you know, why not encourage lectures? Why not encourage meditation, journaling, just different mindfulness practices in a Masonic lodge environment? Spend the first 5 minutes of your Masonic lodges and Masonic meetings engaged in, engaged in a meditation or breathing practices, something to kind of start the lodge on an exciting note before you get into, or in a calming note, a mindfulness note, before you get into the actual crux of the meeting. Oh, sweet. I will check it out then for sure. Thank you to whomever has put it on the YouTube, the tube of you. I'm just going to see if I can find it quickly. I was with Jeffrey Rush. That is a very impressive thing to live amongst those who hate, but to not hate yourself. That is absolutely a very impressive thing. And it shows a great deal of talent and skill and ability, which, again, I think from a Masonic perspective, you could argue is an example of temperance. To temper your emotions, not allow the emotions of others to affect you, is a really very, very valuable and very valuable skill that unfortunately many people do not have. Give me a few more minutes. Let's see if anybody else jumps on, and then maybe we'll go for 2.5 hours today, and then I'll be back on tonight 1 a.m. We'll discuss the same topic as we've been discussing thus far, but maybe I'll give people a chance to think of some different topics or ideas that they would want to explore therein. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, etc., etc. All the things I always say. Courageous, that's like a Christian flick, if I recall correctly, right? Because it's starring I can't think of the name now, but it's about firefighters, right? Or is that yeah, an American independent Christian film directed by Alex Kendrick. 4th film by Assured Pictures, Flywheel, Facing the Giants, Fireproof. Hey, I'm not sure if I do or not, Alan, but thank you for being here. Siren buzzing, we know it's a democracy. I'm not sure what that means. Sirens are not necessarily about a democracy, one or the other, but you know. Yeah, I'm just looking at it now. Seems like a very uplifting movie, Courageous. I will for sure. Right now, just hanging out. We're chatting about Freemasonry. I was talking about Freemasonry and civic groups of engagement, why I believe these groups are necessary to reducing crime. Interestingly enough, I think Courageous is about police officers, right? So that's one of those things where um, we're talking about reduction in crime, social groups. Faith can sometimes help with that as well. Alex Kendrick. I'll check it out. He also did, looks like another, I love sports movies, and he did Facing the Giants. And as somebody who, my favorite sports movie of all time is a football movie. It's Friday Night Lights, which is an incredible movie, by the way. And we talked about that in Freemasonry. And what was I saying? I love the perfect speech from Friday Night Lights. I think you can try to be, when you talk about being a perfect Mason, for example, it's the same way, right? Being a perfect Mason, what that means. But it looks like Facing the Giants is also a football movie, so it'd be kind of fun to check that out too. I do, Funny Republican. I hope you're doing well. I hope you'll hit that like button, etc., and let me know how it's going. We're pretty much done the main topic of today's stream, which was civic group, civic engagement, and crime reduction. In the process of that, we're now just kind of hanging out and chatting. So we'll be back on 1 a.m. and then tomorrow 1 p.m. as well. So I hope, though, that you are doing well. Do you mean from a crime perspective? Depends on how bad the situation has gotten. Because certainly, I mean, I guess it's almost when it comes to social groups and civic organizations, the hope is almost you keep things from getting to a point where crime seems to be the exclusive option. So you have, for example, a benevolence fund that can give people money so they don't need to steal would be an example of that, right? Car 212, I think it's the Joker there. Are there any religious themes or undertones within Freemasonry? So Freemasonry is not a religion, right? We have men of, and there's the Order of Women Freemasons, but men of, all different faiths: Muslim, Christian, Jewish, Hindu, Sikh. Um, there are, how do I put it? I mean, ritual, which Freemasonry has, will almost always have a level of kind of religious undertones to it because ritual and religion are so often intertwined. So any religion, any ritual can sometimes have a religious quality to it. And because when these rituals were kind of developed and formed, especially the third degree, there was definitely kind of, I don't know what the word is. So, for example, Freemasonry has a lot of, draws a lot of metaphorical ideals from King Solomon's Temple. Obviously, King Solomon's Temple is heavily referenced in the Bible at different portions. But it's treated more as historical as opposed to religious, right? If that makes any sense. So, at the end of the day, what it's about is community and brotherhood. It welcomes people of all different faiths. There are, from a historical perspective, sometimes religious references, especially to, for example, King Solomon and King Solomon's Temple, but more the historical figure as opposed to the biblical figure. And that tends to be where those come from. There's also some references in York Rite and Scottish Rite to religious ideals. But again, at its core, it is about the brotherhood, if that makes any sense. Welcome if you're just joining us, and thank you, by the way, Car, for being here. I'm not sure if you're new to the stream or not. I don't recognize the name. I hope you like and subscribe, and I hope you let me know if you have any other questions on Freemasonry. I'll do my best to try to answer them. I've been a Freemason since 2007. I certainly don't know everything about Freemasonry, but I like to think I've got some experiences therein. Thank you. So I hope I answered your question well, Car. Do you have any other questions about Freemasonry? I can do my best to answer them. Can't make any promises, but I can do my best. It's something I love talking about. I stream most days 1 p.m. and 1 a.m. through the week. So even if you don't get me, if you have to run on this stream, you can find me on other streams. It's okay. Again, it's a little bit overdone, I think, sometimes, Courtney. hope everybody is doing well, and thank you everybody for hanging out. It's been a great stream as always. Had about over 300 people join, which is wonderful. It's funny though, I still find my evening streams tend to get my morning streams, my 1 a.m. morning streams tend to get more people. Y'all be a bunch of night owls like me. I've never read the Solomon Key, so I'm thinking that might be my next book because I've been told it's really, really good. So I think it'd be worth studying for sure. Could be really enjoyable. We're just going to wait to give it a few more minutes to see if anybody else jumps on. Then I will be switching over to another, switching off this stream, be back at 1 a.m. Talking about the same thing, Freemasonry or civic engagement and reduction in crimes in communities. I do, Courtney. I 100% think. I mean, I think not every member with every other member, right? Like, you probably every lodge should have a mentorship committee where you have a few mentors, 5 or 6 who kind of work with newer guys or even guys who've been not around for a bit. My uncle was a Mason. Yeah, you can call them ranks, you can call them degrees. Fellowcraft is the second degree. There's 3 that matter. Entered apprentice, Fellowcraft, Master Mason. Right? And so there's 3 degrees. It's interesting he was a Fellowcraft. A lot of people tend excuse me. Oh. Sorry about that. A lot of people tend to, get all 3 degrees, or they stop at the first. But in terms of ranks, the rank that really matters is your Master Mason degree, your 3rd degree. After you have that, you can then take offices in lodge. You can become a worshipful master of a lodge. That's the highest rank in Freemasonry, is Master Mason. You can then join appendant bodies, Scottish and York Rite, where you have additional degrees, but that's kind of a separate thing, appendant bodies. So for your Blue Lodge, your Main Lodge, your Craft Lodge, for the Masonic Lodge, it's 3 degrees. Entered Apprentice, Fellowcraft, Master Mason. The way you progress, it changes a little bit based on jurisdiction to jurisdiction, but primarily you have to be able to answer a set of questions, memorize and recite a series of questions, like a catechism almost, as well as usually repeat your kind of a Masonic obligation. Not every jurisdiction requires that. Some just have the call and response, question and answers. Some have, the obligation, some don't. But it's a lot of memorization and memory work is usually how you advance through it. And mentorship therein. So different jurisdictions have different rules about the length of time. almost everything has a minimum time period. So, for example, if I want to advance in Ontario from the first degree, entered apprentice to second degree, there's usually the minimum wait time is 30 days. I have to wait at least 30 days before I move up to the second rank. But some jurisdictions also have maximum time before you have to kind of you have to ask for some type of permission. So in Texas, for example, I was told if you're a fellow craft for longer than 1 year, you have to request dispensation or request permission to remain at that level and not advance. So, for the purposes of Freemasonry, simple answer: 3 ranks: entered apprentice, fellow craft, master mason. You advance through kind of usually memorization work, as well as in some cases there's a fee to advance. In Ontario, there's not. You pay the same in all three degrees. I hope that answered that question, Karkar. And cool, my uncle is a Mason as well, as is my father and grandfather. Grandfathers, in fact. They both passed away now. But the most important thing is, are you progressing in your heart? I think that's what has to matter the most. That's good. I'm glad that he spoke highly of it, Karkar. And I'm glad that you're here. Thank you so much. They are not Spaceman, Ether. They are not timed to the full moon. They are usually not timed to anything other than some guy 50 years ago when the lodge was formed picked a particular date. Usually, for me, my lodge meets the first and third Friday of the month at 7 o'clock p.m. So they're not timed to the full moon, nor are they timed to anything else. Sometimes they're timed to just convenience when the lodge was first formed, the date and time, or the day of the week and time that the most people had the most lodges available. Sometimes they get scheduled based on Freemasonry in the town. So if you have, let's say, 10 lodges in a city, they may try to schedule their meetings as such that they're not bumping into each other or meeting on the same nights to allow for better visitation. So it can all just depend. I mean, I've been lucky enough, Spaceman, to, I hope you don't mind me saying, calling you Spaceman, but I've been to many Masonic lodge meetings in Illinois, primarily in the Chicago area, particularly in Glenview, Morton Grove. So put it in Glenview, Skokie, and Jefferson Park. I mean, I never really paid attention to it, but I went to plenty of meetings where when I left, the moon was not full, so I'm not sure. I guess I've not seen any evidence for that. having been to enough lodge meetings where there is no full moon, and I've never noticed any type of parallel between the moon and Masonic lodge meetings. Now, I'm sure there are Masonic lodges that set it up that way, probably for some type of interesting traditional reason, none of which I can think of off the top of my head. Gary Wayne basically says they want newcomers to worship Jesus, that they worship any god. I'm not sure who. I think I've heard of Gary Wayne. I think he posted stuff on YouTube, right? So Freemasonry, and again, I guess you can choose whom to believe. I've been a Freemason since 2007. Freemasonry, there is no. Freemasonry is not a religion. There's no worshiping of Jesus, nor of Lucifer, nor of Satan, nor of any other religious entity. Right? Freemasonry welcomes men of different religious beliefs who believe in a supreme being. It can be Christian, Muslim, Jewish, First Nations, or Indigenous, Hindu, Sikh, Wiccan. At no point during my Masonic career thus far have I ever been asked to worship anything, or any type of religious being, or worship anything other than whatever my own personal views may be. Right? And so I've never met a Freemason who worships Satan. Interesting enough, I had one person call me when I was at the Masonic building here in Windsor and say he was a Satanist and was interested in joining Freemasonry because he believed that we worship Satan. And so I talked to him. I explained to him what Freemasonry was and what we believe, and he subsequently decided not to join because he found it not compatible with Satanism. So, Macomb County, First Lodge, I don't know what you mean by First Lodge ever closed by the Masons. I mean, lodges close all the time, unfortunately. I wish they didn't. But lodges open and close. Unfortunately, they can close due to low membership, financial reasons, etc., etc. Sometimes they don't even close. They go. What's called amalgamate, where two lodges will join to form one lodge, if they find that they are, each struggling with, membership or finances or whatever it might be. I'm listening to many Manly Hall videos, secret teachings. I mean, Manly Hall, you got to be really careful with some of that stuff, the more spiritual side of things. I have never found the Manly Halls to be particularly illuminating when it comes to my Masonic journey. Jay, who you can't see because his message was hidden, said, "You look like your feet stink." Well, joke's on you, Jay. I have no feet because I have no legs. But please hit the like and subscribe button anyways. They made them close this, like you mean the town made them close the lodge down? Um, I'll never take offense, Lapis. I appreciate it, but I try not to take offense to too much. Uh, I mean, there have been times in the past where towns, there was like an anti-Masonic political party for a minute. So it would not shock me if there were towns that said we're not going to let Freemasons have meetings or something. It's not something I know a lot about, however. But I mean, I'm sure there have or ordinances cited or whatever it might be. Um, but yeah, I would need to know a little bit more about it. I'm not sure. I would find it very unfortunate if things like that were to happen, but I'm sure they have historically. There's lots of different levels of knowledge, some higher, some lower. I'd be hesitant to put too much credence into some of that stuff. At least take it with the grain of salt. I mean, heck, take what I say with the grain of salt as well, right? Jordan Maxwell. I'm not sure who Jordan Maxwell is. Sounds familiar. Let me see again. He's an author, right? Jordan Maxwell. Occult researcher, religious philosopher. Like I said, I tend to be pretty hesitant. Dr. something Gilbert. I mean, insights. There's a lot of interesting, again, historical tidbits about Freemasonry in Canada. The fact that the first Prime Minister was himself a Freemason, excuse me, is a really cool insight. And I think worth sharing as well. So there's a lot of different insights that I think are worth sharing in Freemasonry in Canada. Some I've talked about in the past, but some would be worth exploring again in future as well. All right, I will check those out. But guys, because I'm coughing up a storm here, I think I'm going to end this stream. I will be back on tonight, 1 a.m. So I hope you will check me out then. In the meantime, please hit that like button, that subscribe button. I will see you all soon. All right, thanks, guys.